call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Donahue?
Here.
McKnight?
Here.
Rella?
Here.
Vogel? Here. Stearns?
Here. If you would please stand, pledge allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you have a cell phone, iPad, iWatch, if you would please mute it. I will try to remind you at the end of the meeting to turn it back on, but don't count on it. Public comment on the agenda. So I have one person, Don Goldstein, signed up to speak. If you just come up and give us your address.
Thank you, Mayor Stearns. My name is Don Goldstein. I live at 21553 Star Route. And I would like to just make a couple of comments about the community development block grant funding that I know that council is considering. I'm here this evening representing Common Roots, which is a community organization, a nonprofit, whose mission is to develop affordable housing. And we are applying for Cdbg funds to assist with the renovation of a once distressed duplex at 1189-91 South Main Street, almost right across from 2nd District School. We had been applying for funds to undertake the last major phase in the physical renovation of this structure next summer, summer of 2022. It's come to our attention that the Cdbg and HUD regulations governing these funds exclude the use of the funds for physical projects in floodways. Mm-hmm. And this neighborhood and this house, this property are indeed in a floodway. Part of our plan for renovation is to bring it up to code by filling in the basement, which we're currently in the process of, and moving all the utilities up above grade. But I would ask council's forbearance in allowing us to modify our proposal, our application, which, as I said, was focused on physical renovation, because we've also learned that the exclusion of physical improvements under this funding does not include non-physical costs related to housing, low-income housing development. So things like purchases of tools, insurance, closing costs for new residents who might be purchasing the units. There's a variety of uses that could be eligible despite the fact that the property is in a floodway. So we're going to make a good faith effort to redo this proposal and get it back into city staff in time for it to be considered before the 16th, if indeed council decides to wait until then to vote on the proposals. And we'd be happy to answer any questions. I'd be happy to answer any questions or take any suggestions that you all might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Katie, would you mark down who was speaking on behalf of Common Roots, please?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Third, oath of office. Gary, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Typically, what happens when I appoint a new staffer, usually fireman or police officer, council usually has a motion to concur with the appointment. In this case, we have two firefighters, one part-time, one full-time. So I believe we could do the motion to concur individually, and then you can administer the oath down here to each of them individually. So the first one would be the motion to concur with my appointment of Jordan Turner as a full-time firefighter.
Motion. Second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel, Stearns.
Aye.
Yeah, go ahead, you can do the second motion then. This is a motion to concur with my appointment of Daniel Seraphin as a part-time firefighter.
Motion.
moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Donahue,
Aye.
McKnight,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel, Stearns.
Aye.
So we'll start with Jordan then, and the mayor will swear you in.
Good area. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to give you the oath of office. Raise your right hand, please. I, your name,
I, Jordan Turner,
solemnly swear and affirm
solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey,
obey,
and defend the Constitution of the United States
and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth.
I will discharge my duties
I will discharge my duties
of office with fidelity.
of office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to have you sign a form to make it. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You give the oath of office, raise your right hand. I, Daniel Seraphin,
I, Daniel Seraphin,
solemnly swear and affirm
solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support,
that I will support,
obey,
obey,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the
of the
Constitution
United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and the Constitution of this Commonwealth,
and that I will discharge the duty
and I will discharge the duty
of my office with fidelity.
of my office with fidelity.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll have you sign the... Woo! Again, congratulations to the both of you, and welcome to the city family. Hi, Gary, if you want to go ahead and give us a COVID-19 update, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. As everybody knows, I think by now, most of the mitigation requirements by the governor were lifted as of, I believe, 2 days ago. The one that's remaining is the mask order for those who have not been vaccinated, and that appears to be on track to be lifted by June 28th or before that if 70% of Pennsylvania adults get vaccinated or fully vaccinated. So it looks like by the end of the month, we'll be back to maybe where we were about 16 months ago or so. So there's that. The other part of that, we still maintain operation under emergency declaration. I think we'll continue that until the state lifts theirs. But I wanted to bring to council, did we want to go ahead and move back to 894 Diamond Park for our meetings? Most of the other authorities and boards have moved over back to 894 since the occupancy limits have been lifted. I think we could probably have them over there safely. But it's up to council if we want to move back to the existing city building.
Okay. Council's feel on it.
I'm in agreement with you.
I'm comfortable with it. I imagine it would be easier for staff.
Okay.
Katie
Yes.
nods, so I'm good.
I like it here better, but I'd rather be back
Yeah.
where it's easier for staff.
I mean, we'll be limited on how many people can fit into the room, but it will be easier for staff to access information they need.
Right. Well, it looks like we're moving back home.
You have to advertise that, Gary?
Yeah, Katie will handle that.
Notice of executive session I'm sorry, Gary, was there anything else on duty?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Katie, notices of executive sessions, please.
Your Honor, an executive session was held on May 19th, 2021 to discuss real estate. Executive session was held on May 24th, 2021 to discuss personnel, and an executive session was held today at noon to discuss personnel.
Thank you. Motion to approve the minutes.
Motion.
Second,
Second?
discussion, questions? Roll call.
Donahue,
Aye.
McKnight,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Stearns.
Aye.
There's two sets of minutes.
I see
Your Honor.
that. And we have another set of minutes for May 19th.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? Roll call.
Donahue,
Aye.
McKnight,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel, Stearns.
Aye. Katie, communications, I see we have two.
Your Honor, the first is an email that was received just before your last meeting on May 19th. And it missed the cutoff, so it is on tonight's agenda. This is from Pat and Kathy Freeman. Our family is strongly in favor of turning city emergency dispatch over to the county 911 center. This will be much more efficient for residents to simply call 911 and not look up the number for the city dispatch. It will also save money as most city residents don't have deep pockets to keep paying more and more. There are too many nonprofits in the city for residents to foot the bill. Thank you. Your Honor, the second is a notice of award from the Department of Environmental Protection pertaining to the Section 902 recycling program. The city was awarded a grant in the amount of $208,507, with the city match bringing the total of the project to $231,675.
Okay, thank you. Gary, manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. We were to have an update from the beautification committee, but we're bumping that to the next meeting. So that will come up at the next meeting. Just a couple of notes under the report. We do have a new receptionist. We were about 3.5 months or so without a receptionist at the front desk. We welcome Debbie Crow, who comes to us most recently from First Christian Church, where she was secretary for 11 years, and before that 14 years as an assistant teacher at Rainbow Connection Preschool. She has she's a wealth of skills she's really going to help us out at the front desk there, so we can welcome her to the city. Next, as you probably saw in the Tribune last week, the Redevelopment Authority received a grant of $125,000, CFA state grant that's essentially going to pay for environmental study, documentation, and potentially, hopefully, there's money there to actually begin the cleanup of the former Jones Plumbing building on Water Street next to C&J. Redevelopment Authority owns that building. They acquired it a year or two ago. 2019. And it's part of beginning to redevelop that property. So, next, several events are coming back. We have permits issued for the Diamond Park. So the Erie Philharmonic will be performing on June 25th at 7 p.m. And the MCA concert series is back. Starts July 1st and runs every Thursday through August 5th. All shows begin at 7 p.m. So it's good to see those are coming back to the Diamond. There's going to have a lot of activity there this summer now that everything's being lifted, all the mitigation is being lifted. Cleanup day numbers came in. The total costs came in at $51.49. Scrap value of $941 and the revenue of $1,380 lived a net cost of $2,829. So. We had 138 loads. It was fairly successful. I think it was about 17 tons worth of material that was brought in. So, and lastly, a bit of cool news, frankly. WQLN PBS is going to have a second, more stories from Meadville. A few years ago, they had a documentary on Meadville under the Our Town series. And then in May, they were back and they're producing a second one. It's going to air on June 24th at 8 p.m. on QLN, so that'll be kind of cool to check out. It's just another showcase of what Meadville does, what Meadville's like, and bring some people to town. So that's kind of cool.
Great.
And with that, that's all I had under manager's report.
Any questions for Gary? Mary Ann, thank you for working so hard on getting that taken care of on Water Street. It's been a long process. Appreciate your support on that. Council members' priority, reviewing the moving of the 911 dispatch. We'll have a town hall meeting on June 9th, 6 p.m. Am I correct?
That's next Wednesday.
In this building?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the residents of the city of Meadville are welcome to come and share their thoughts. Basically, I believe council's just going to be sitting there listening to what they have to say. So we're not going to really probably be prepared to answer a lot of questions, but to hear what the public has to say.
Right. The idea is to maximize the amount of public input. So we're going to have, we have 90 minutes. We're going to focus on dispatch and what that means for, not only for the department and the taxpayers and the residents of the city, but also in city finances. So it's really those three items that we're going to focus on. Individuals will need to sign in and can speak for up to 3 minutes and one time. Okay, so I'll do a little spiel at the beginning to kind of talk about what we're here and what impacts might look like, largely based on what the police had provided a few months back. But that's really the goal, is to try to get as many people as possible to be able to make their comments. In up to 3 minutes, they should be able to speak what they're looking to say in that amount of time. So that's what we're trying to do, to try to keep things going, not rush people, but keep things going and hear from as many people as possible.
And
So
the ability to speak will be for city residents or city taxpayers?
That's correct. Yep.
Can we include the Pell recommendation around dispatch in the kind of front-loading material, I guess, that is presented, right, in that kind of presentation?
The specific recommendation regarding dispatch.
I mean, that's all we're talking about, right? Yeah, so, yeah.
Doors will open at 5:30, so people can sign in and have time to sign in before it gets started. So, and then it'll actually start at 6.
6, okay.
People have to sign up to speak.
Okay. Any other comments on that?
That's all I had, Your Honor.
The homeroom charter's on hold, and of course, the reassessment's on hold. Council members' reports. Beautification Committee. Autumn, Larry, anything?
We'll have as Gary said, we'll have an update from Victoria, the chair of that committee next week, but there's several fundraisers that the group is looking to do that she'll explain to us.
Great. Jim, anything on the finance?
Nothing since last meeting.
French Creek Council of Governments?
3 months.
Okay. NAACP Subcommittee?
We haven't heard anything since they
No.
came.
Parking Subcommittee? No. Redevelopment Authority Liaison? No, other than the work that you're doing at purchasing property when we can. Recreation Subcommittee? I don't have anything. Do you, Larry?
No.
And tax exempt gifts? Jim?
Nothing.
Okay. Old business, authorities and boards and commissions. Do we have any appointments?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Discussion of City of Meadville 3-year capital plan. So that's a big sheet. So Gary, I'm gonna let you run with it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, last meeting, you'll recall, we got this to council just as an introduction of what we're looking to do here. There have been a few minor modifications, and I'm going to lean on Debbie a little bit here. The one that I will call attention to is, we'll dig right in then, if that's okay? Okay. So under the fire department, line 5, EMS squad truck, 16.8 and 16.14 combination. So right now we have a Suburban, the red Suburban you'll see around, we've had since 2008. That's what they run most EMS, or some EMS calls on. And then there's what's called 1614, which is a 2004, I believe, F-150. Chief's not here. 2004 F-150 that is parked in a garage. You don't see it very often, but it's for hazmat, a lot of hazmat gear on that. So what the chief is looking to do is combine those roles into one. And the total cost for that would be around $53,000. And you'll see that under column F, under 2023, you'll see that. And how we propose to fund that is about $11,000 in actual borrowing, and then using $42,410 out of Cdbg, which we will talk about later today. Okay. Now, overarching all of this is that the chief has actually applied for grants to potentially cover the entire cost of that, and that is actually one that, to be quite fair, it fell through the cracks, and it was actually applied for. We'll need council to actually take action at the next meeting to ratify that. It was actually submitted without having first come to council. It kind of fell into the cracks between managers. I'll take the fall for that one. So there is no grant for, or there is no match for that. It's a straight up grant. It's from Highmark Foundation, and he applied for not only the truck but several other items as well. So we'll need to come back to council at the next meeting and ask for ratification of submittal of that. We don't know if we got the grant. We hope to hear in July. If we do hear from back in July and before we submit this, we can pull this item from here, from this application here, because we will be able to pay for the grants. I just wanted to mention that.
Will this be a diesel or a gasoline vehicle?
Diesel.
Okay. Any idea how many miles a year you put on it?
I don't. I know the chief specifically wanted to spec a diesel as a diesel upgrade from the gas. That much I know. I didn't ask why. I think it's because everything else uses diesel, except for his truck.
All right.
That might be why. I'd have to ask him why. Deb, were there other specific changes
There
since
were-
council saw it?
There were a couple, nothing's real, I mean, I just confirmed all the numbers were adding up correctly and everything. So the one that you have before you should be the most latest update that there was, and that is the only specific change that I can remember that we did today to that.
So other than that change, this is what you saw 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
I got a couple of questions right off the top. You taking questions now?
Absolutely.
So how are we going to fund this, and what is how much, what will the additional cost be?
So I talked with John McShane today. We had multiple conversations. We were able to get it to be able to wrap the debt, which is a lot cheaper. So he estimated about $130,000 additionally a year for this particular debt, because we were able to wrap it. Now, if we weren't able to wrap it, it would be considered in the 200s. But we were able to extend the debt out and wrap it, so it'll be approximately $130,000 in addition to what we currently are paying now. Yes.
Okay. And what's the cost of doing this? Is that wrapped into this, or is that?
So there will be, like, the ratings call is 16,500, and that's just a blanket number. So it's probably between 40 and 50,000 to do a bond refinancing. Now, that's the same if you borrow 1 million or 10 million. It's kind of, it doesn't,
We usually fall in that range, do we not?
what, between 1 and 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yes, we have. Well, I think the last one we did was 13 million because we refinanced a bunch of things.
Right.
I think the last one was 13 million.
And I know you've been asked this already, but there is no bonds coming up that we can
No,
refinance,
there
any
is not.
savings? I don't think there's bond savings for, what, another 3 years?
Yeah, it's at least 2.
At least 2. Okay, so the additional cost is going to be $130,000 on top of what we're already paying now.
Yes, and depending on where the market is, now I spoke with John today, the market looks really good at the moment, but the longer we wait, the longer that before we decide, the market could change, but right now it's good.
Okay.
And this is based on a total borrowing of 6.9?
No,
4,622,959. It's under
Right.
column J
J.
on the last page. We also propose using $815,000 from stormwater, $88,000 from a prior borrowing, $125,000 from a prior borrowing, and then $450,000 from CDBG and $2.5 million from grants that are not yet secured, which brings us to the 6.9.
So you're going to be using the Cdbg funds, and we're getting how much for that?
Well, that's proposed over 3 years, the CDBG funding. This year, we're getting $330,000 some, which we'll be going over later in the meeting as well,
Okay.
for this year.
But that's part of the $330,000?
Yes. Yes. You'll also see on here, of course, the pumper, the aerial truck, the Quint that the chief is proposing to combine the existing aerial and the old pumper into one little bit smaller aerial. Last meeting, you'll recall, we approved signatures to apply for an earmark through Casey's office to pay for that.
Right.
We still have it in here for $875,000, which would be included with $125,000 that we had in a 2015 borrowing, where originally we were looking to replace the aerial to bring it to $1 million. So if we were able to get that grant or that earmark through Casey's office, that would be an additional $1 million that we could potentially use elsewhere in capital. It would have to be used in capital, but so if we got that, that's another $1 million. We could, spend another 2 or 3 years of paving out of that if we were able to get that earmark as well. So just keep in mind that there's contingencies in this from grant perspective. This would be worst case. Okay, we still want to include it here because we feel it's important to get that piece of equipment, hoping that we can get that earmark through the federal government.
I take it to be combining the two vehicles. I saw that in Paris when I was in Paris. That's going to be able to reach the areas that we need to reach. Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll shut up now and let you go ahead and ask
No,
your
that's
questions.
fine.
Will you be going over these items and possibly eliminating some of the requests?
We actually did do that with some of the departments. We did push back a little bit and basically said that's just not going to work, figure something else out. And so we've had several items taken off.
What is a truck exhaust removal system?
It is in the fire department, when it was built in '98 or so, it's basically a giant exhaust. It hooks to it has these hoses that come down and hooks into the exhaust pipes of the trucks. So when they start them up, and they're started for a little bit, and then while they leave, they take the exhaust out so they don't get CO poisoning for anyone that's inside. And they're automatically, when the truck pulls away, it falls right off the pipe.
Fall off.
Yeah.
The last one was installed in 1999.
99. Yeah. That's original to the fire station.
Yeah. That's the year before I was born.
Me too, Jim.
Debbie, I thought I remember you saying last time we looked at this that maybe August would be a target to get to the market. I mean, but I'm hearing you say that the sooner we do it.
Well, that was John's indication today, that the market looks good now, probably even in June, July. But he just indicated the longer we wait, the more of a chance that interest rates could rise and it couldn't be as favorable. But he said right now we're good. I mean, we can certainly wait. I mean, it's up to council when we present it. I was just going on his recommendations to say the sooner we make a decision, the better it will be. I mean, the market, he can, once we decide, they can do it up to. So if we're not really sure, they can do a range of a maximum of, say we wanted to say a maximum of 5 million. Now, we wouldn't be locked into borrowing 5 million, but they would start preparing everything to get ready for market. And then when it was the right time, we could give them his final number and then go then. But if we can do it up to maximum that we'd be willing to borrow. So yes.
Yeah, I mean, I asked because, right, with some of these outstanding grant applications, and I was talking to Gary earlier with the American Rescue Plan Act funds that can go towards capital improvement and some purchases, just wondering if it can lighten the load of what we do have to borrow. But all of that is later, and we have to wait, and so the timing doesn't work perfectly. But what does the rest of this process look like for us? What do we do?
Well, once council decides what exactly they want to see in here, then Debbie will go to John and say, we're looking to borrow this amount, and then we have a special bond attorney? Is that right? Bond counsel,
Yes.
who will help walk us through. Is it an ordinance or just a resolution?
No, there's an ordinance.
So there's an ordinance that goes along with it. And is that the one that you do one time? One time reading? Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Solicitor Crowley. Appreciate that. He's a lot cheaper. Let's go to him.
I was just going to say, we can save a little bit of money. Mike, you just slide over a little closer to us.
All I do is nod my head.
Sure.
So that would be the process, is Deb would get the letter, or the amount to John, and then he and Pat Healy, the bond counsel, and Mike will work together to get us through the process.
Yeah. As far as you're concerned, you just need to decide, and we'll do the rest of this. And, John McShane and Pat Healy do most of the work. They just enlighten us on what's happening.
Yeah, so then maybe it's a question for the rest of council. So do these decisions then just happen like this in meetings? We put it on the agenda as a discussion item and work through it, or how do we?
We could focus on specific departments. We could just go through with questions that anyone might have.
I got some questions.
Sure.
There you go.
Got them right now.
So we could just go through with
Rainbow
questions.
Dam. What's going on with Rainbow Dam? I've never seen that out here before.
Yes. You'll recall it started in 2014.
Yes, I was here.
With the
They came and said it needed
background.
repairs because of they actually says because of rainfall. There's more rainfall now than there had been when it was built.
Correct.
I asked why, because I was fascinated, because it really isn't that big of a dam. It's not holding back that much water. But anyway, $2 million that I'm assuming the state's gonna give us
Yes, so there's a three-phase. First is planning, second is design, and third is actual construction. We are now in design. And as part of that, they found significant issues that they didn't find in the planning part, which is really kind of spiking. You may recall our initial share would have been like 700,000 or so. And it's going up and up and up as they find a few more issues. And actually Heather Smeltz, who is with the USDA and RCS, will be here at the next meeting to talk about that.
Okay.
Talk about an update where we are and what it
Okay,
looks
because we have
like.
$100,000 that we're gonna borrow for this.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, could we use the CDBG funds for that?
We'd have to look. We'd have to look and see. Potentially.
And then the other one, I'm just interested in that Rainbow Dam, because it was an interesting story when it all happened, about how it was connected to Tamarack. And I know about anything yet. But the other one was this ramp replacement, the ADA ramp replacements. And I know we can use the CDBG funds for that. Can't?
Not anymore.
Oh, right.
We did for
Okay,
years and
good.
years. That's
Okay, they quit letting you do it?
Yeah, it was 3 or 4 years ago, I think, we stopped. It
Didn't
was stopped
qualify.
2 years ago.
Okay.
It was, they stopped automatic. Now we'd have to go and prove who's using it and, I mean, all kinds of stuff to be able to qualify those.
Okay, because I know that before we used to always.
Absolutely.
I always thought, boy, it'd be nice to do something else once in a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, those ramps are constantly being destroyed.
That's what that reflects.
Here I have a couple quick questions. I'm looking at line 6, portable radios for the fire department. I know you applied for a grant, but fire department radios are $40,000. The police department radios on line 19 are only $15,500. You know the reason for that?
I can only guess that the fire department has more radios, but I don't know that. I can check and see.
I would have thought the police would have more, but just wondering.
Okay, the incinerator, is that the one that's in West Main?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and they had called me and asked me about our broken window thing that we were doing. Remember a while ago, there are broken windows in the incinerator when you're driving out towards Liberty. But, so what's the $10,000 doing for this?
That would be fixing any more broken windows, any other maintenance, any other issues that come up with that, so that we do have a specific line item to address those types of things. It does not at all address demolition. A demolition would be
Oh, lots.
a couple, I don't even want to speculate, a lot more than 10,000.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of a placeholder to make sure that as issues come up, we can deal with them and keep it from becoming a blighting influence over there.
So how does council want to, do we want to take a little more time to, and we have a little more time to look at this? Decision doesn't have to be made tonight.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of questions since Councilman Donahue brought up about the Rainbow Dam. There's a couple of questions that I'll have later on about that. I was through that.
She is coming to talk about it?
To get an update,
If I
council.
remember, we don't have to do it.
Nope, no, we don't have to do
I
it.
was gonna say, I don't think we had to.
It's not required to, and we're hoping to get the vast majority, as you can see here, funded either by federal or state money, and state money.
We should be working with Michelle Brooks on this also.
We'll enlist her help when we need it.
Okay. That was the arrangement that I remember. Very
That's
clear.
right.
So we don't want to forget that little
That's right.
card holder.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess in terms of like moving forward, I'm not good at reading on the spot and with an audience. So, but I wonder if we can like, you know, take this 2 or 3 sections at a time and plan out for the next few council meetings, where we can all review ahead of time, maybe send questions to Gary or Debbie in advance even, right? And they can have some of those answers, or if city staff from the departments that we're gonna be looking at, like if they can be there and answer questions or
I like
get more
that.
information.
How many, we have what, 1, 2, 3,
It might make make sense to do like police and
maybe.
fire and
I
then
was gonna
like
say do
everything
two.
else or
Combine
something,
some
like, I don't know.
streets and,
If we're gonna do it at a public meeting, that, make sure we can maybe do two at a time or a little more, because you don't wanna wait till August and then we're trying to give you direction to go.
So if you're looking to have department heads here, it would just be police, fire, and public works, because then Deb is the other department head, and
When
We could do it
My
in 3
best.
meetings, in other
In the
words.
whole department.
When they submitted
Two more meetings.
these capital requests, did they prioritize? I mean, like, did they say the pumper aerial is number one? I'm sure it is. But I mean, do we have an idea of sets of priorities that, you know, if they had to lose something, they could say, oh, yeah, that's third or fourth on the list?
it's
Or
be-
could they do that? That might be helpful in helping us to focus.
What I'll say is that we told them once, go back and figure it out. We can tell them again, go back and figure it out, but essentially what's going to start to happen with it is, as I said last meeting, this isn't a wish list, it's a needs list, and so what's going to happen is it's going to impact service. And it's going to an extent, it's going to become a policy issue at that point. So if we don't want to replace a couple of the dump trucks, then it's going to take longer to plow, because you may or may not have as many trucks on the road. And if we don't replace the cruisers, for example, we might have more breakdowns. Things like that can come into play. We can ask them to prioritize it, for sure. We could do that. And then once we start lopping off at the bottom, though, just keep in mind that there could be real impacts with that. Now, the alternative, of course, is to lop that off and include, for example, technology. We have computers, technology in every one of these departments, okay? And it totals, what, 180 or 200 grand, something like that? And we could make that operational. Take it out of capital, make it operational. You might need to raise taxes to pay for it, but it becomes an operational expense as opposed to a capital expense that you're borrowing money for. And that can happen really with anything in here, frankly. Conceivably, you could have less capital, but that means higher annual budget. So that's just one thing to keep in mind.
What do we see as the proposed payback time on this borrowing? 20 years? Okay, so the question is, you incur 20 years debt on items that are only going to last 5, like police cruisers? Or do you make those an operational budget?
Potentially, you could.
When John does the analysis, they do a breakdown, and if the larger amount of the things that you're purchasing are, so let's say example, like we estimated that the pumper truck will hopefully last us 30 years. So as the larger dollars are higher lifespan, it allows you to wrap. Like if everything here was under 10 to 15 years, we would have to purchase it and pay it. We couldn't wrap the debt, we'd have to pay it. And it would be like a new loan, and we'd have to have it paid for in 20 years. So it's a big difference. I agree with Gary, the technology really is a questionable capital expense because of lifespan. Well, not a questionable capital expense, but a questionable bond expense because the lifespan of it is. But we have these other things that have large lifespans. By the time they wrap it all together, they're able to get to 24 years, and that's the magic number that John was trying to get to be able to wrap. Because as we know, computers, they're pretty much shot in 5 years.
Okay.
What I'd like to see is too, the grants that we're applying for. I know Fire Chief has applied for numerous grants, and that can also help change this if those grant monies come about, and Deb Coral works on that. So I'm kind of hoping that we're going to be able to find more grant money to offset.
Hopefully.
Well-
We may or may not, the issue is going to be, we're probably not going to know. We might know about the second one there by the time we have to go to market, but we're
Okay.
definitely, excuse me, we're not going to know about the earmark. We probably wouldn't know about the radios one by the time we have to go to market. So
Okay.
if we decide we need it, it should be in here.
Right.
And if we
And
get
then
a
if we
grant,
do get it, we can,
we can move this to
Move it.
other capital.
okay. All right.
There's a lot of information here for sure.
Yeah, there is. So why don't we take, and have a couple meetings on it. I think Gautam had a great idea. We'll just go ahead and put the police and fire together, and we'll have one meeting for that. And then with the streets.
And then the other one for everything else then?
Yeah, I would think we should be able to get through that. Is that all right with council?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if it works, scheduling and.
Yeah, if it
Yeah.
And you
works
want,
in your schedule.
you want the department heads here then, or? I mean, I
Well,
don't
we
know
only
if
really
it's
get to talk to
necessary.
them twice a year, but, we usually talk to them during
I
the,
think we need them here.
I would,
Yeah.
if council wants them here, they'll be here.
Just asking.
So,
I'm sure
I
that
mean,
they'll understand.
Yeah, I think the other option would be if we read ahead of time and send in any questions and they can answer on their work time at their leisure without coming, I mean, is an option too, but that then also obligates us to do that with advance notice.
I think it is helpful for you to ask the questions in the meantime, and then we can respond, we can do the research and respond for discussion in a public session.
Well, that gives them the opportunity to prepare further questions.
one little request, would it possible that we do it in 2 meetings? Because if we do it in 3, it'll be the 16th, the 7th, and then we'll be at the end of July.
Yeah, I was thinking two.
Okay, I was thinking somewhere it was 3.
Police, fire, and then everything else.
Okay, okay. 'Cause then
Would that give us enough time?
Yeah, that makes us July 7th, that Wednesday, and if we can make some decision, then we can get it to John, and hopefully we'll be good. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Comments? Deb, thank you for putting this together and all those who helped. Appreciate that. Gary, thank you. Resolution authorizing conversion of Jefferson from brick to asphalt. Katie?
A resolution of the council of the city of Meadville authorizing conversion of Jefferson Street from brick to asphalt, beginning at Randolph Street and ending at State Street. Resolved by the council of the city of Meadville that whereas in accordance with the provisions adopted by the council of the city of Meadville on April 4th, 2018, known as Brick Street Conversion Policy, and whereas the conditions of the curbs, gutter, and paving base on Jefferson Street are such that city staff recommends the street be converted to asphalt from Randolph Street to its termination at State Street. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the city of Meadville hereby authorizes the conversion of Jefferson Street from brick to asphalt pavement from Randolph Street to the end at State Street.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Gary?
Oh, yes, Your Honor. You'll recall, we talked about this last couple of meetings, that we're looking to pave all of Jefferson Street with federal grant money next year. That does not pay for brick replacement, so this would essentially take advantage of that federal funding to convert that section from brick to asphalt. And of course, it requires approval from council anytime we convert from brick to asphalt.
What feedback did we receive?
I didn't hear anything from Nathan. They sent out letters to both the owners and the residents along the street, and I haven't heard anything one way or the other.
Any other questions? Roll call?
We had,
Oh,
I was just
sorry.
gonna say, we had public comment at the last meeting.
Mm-hmm.
from public, so.
She was concerned about the speed.
Should, yeah, should
Right.
go to the stop
And-
sign.
Yep, we're looking into that too, have the stop sign there. We're looking into
Put a
that.
couple of speed bumps in. It's good for the frame of the vehicles. Roll call, any other questions? Roll call.
Donahue? McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel? Stearns?
Aye. And we have a resolution, consent, placement of the honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Katie?
A resolution of the council of the city of Meadville consenting to the placement of a memorial to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the city's right-of-way. Be it resolved by the council of the city of Meadville that whereas the city of Meadville controls the right-of-way located between the sidewalk and the roadway in front of Second District Elementary School on South Main Street, and whereas Reverend Gary Manning of Boynton Street Church of God Revived has requested that council permit the placement of a memorial honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the aforementioned right-of-way. And whereas city staff spoke with Crawford Central School District, owner and operator of Second District Elementary and its related property, and they are amenable to the placement of the memorial. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the city of Meadville hereby consents to the use of the city-owned right-of-way near 1216 South Main Street for the purpose of constructing, erecting, and dedicating a memorial honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., subject to final approval by the Crawford Central School Board and pursuant to an agreement between Reverend Manning, Crawford Central School District, and the city of Meadville.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, I met with Reverend Manning last week. And in your packet, you have an exhibit that essentially shows two potential spots that where it could be. The first is to the south is, probably about 50 feet or so north of the intersection of South Main and Linden, potentially in that area there. The other is north of the double crosswalks at the school. And we picked two just in case there's some underground utilities that would prohibit one or the other. Essentially, it would be roughly the same size as the existing historical marker that's there regarding school desegregation, and it would be perpendicular to traffic, same way as similar manner. So that's the concept. I think from here, then it would, if the council blesses this, then it goes to the Reverend Manning will take it to the school district, and if they bless it, then there will be the three-party agreement that actually formalizes everything, and then they can order the sign and place the sign.
Question for the agreement. That's just not going to be for Reverend Manning. I'm assuming that's going to be an organization that's going to be supporting that, but it's not him personally.
Well, it would be between, I mean, it's my understanding he's putting up this monument on behalf of his
There's a few
parishioners.
churches, but yeah, it's Boynton Street revived, and I believe there's one other one that's involved.
So my understanding is that he is the representative for that community.
Okay.
And so it would be him as representative for that community and the school district of the city.
Okay.
Elizabeth, from a legal standpoint, this will be considered a license to use the land? Catching you unawares, I know.
I don't know that I would consider it a license in so much as a permitted use pursuant to the terms of the agreement. And all three parties will be able to construct that to meet their needs.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call?
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye?
Vogel? Stearns?
Aye. Okay, Katie, we have a resolution honoring life and Ted Watts, please.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville honoring the life and contribution of Ted Watts Sr. by the dedication of East Charity Alley from Diamond Park to Park Avenue to his memory under and pursuant to the Outstanding Citizen Recognition Program adopted by the City Council of the City of Meadville. Be it resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that whereas under and pursuant to the Outstanding Citizen Recognition Program of the City of Meadville, as adopted by the City Council of the City of Meadville pursuant to Resolution Number 20 of 2007, Ted Watts Sr. is hereby recognized as an outstanding citizen of the City of Meadville. And whereas the special contributions of Mr. Watts to the City of Meadville and its citizens give rise to this resolution and the dedication of the portion of East Cherry Alley between Diamond Park and Park Avenue. And whereas the dedication made by this resolution shall continue until further action of the Council of the City of Meadville, and whereas appropriate signage evidencing the dedication made pursuant to this resolution shall be established and maintained in the areas dedicated to the memory of Mr. Watts. And whereas the dedication made by this resolution is and shall not be construed to be the renaming of any street, way, or place for U.S. Mail, 911, or any other purpose. The dedicated area created by this resolution shall not be identified by any person or entity in any official addressing for any purpose whatsoever. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the portion of East Cherry Alley between Diamond Park and Park Avenue is hereby dedicated to the memory of Ted Watts Sr.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
I got nothing.
No?
Yeah, that pretty much explains it, in memory
Quick memory.
in memory of Ted dedicating that section to him, both in honor of his law practice abutting that as well as the Academy Theater. The rear of the Academy Theater abuts that as well in honor of his service to the Academy. So,
Any questions from council?
I'd just like to say, I think it's interesting too, is he passed from COVID, and I think that it's kind of a memorial to people that have lost people from COVID.
Well, he certainly did a lot for the community,
Yes, he did.
as with many others. So, any other comments? Roll call?
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye?
Vogel? Stearns?
Aye. Under new business, discussion in memory of City Police Officer Johnny Foster, We do have a letter here. Andy? Andy, why don't you come up for a second and just kind of give us your thoughts, if you don't mind, address.
Thanks for the standing. I'm not a resident of the city of Meadville. I grew up here, though. I'm a resident of Venango Township, product of Crawford Central School District. So the idea, again, I appreciate you letting me address the board, even though I'm not a full-fledged city resident. So anybody that's between the ages probably of 45 and 65, 70 have probably recalled Officer Johnny Foster with the Meadville Police Department. He's a wonderful individual. 2 Februaries ago, during Black History Month, a few of us began to talk about him on social media, and it just spread, it just took off. Like, wow, how come Meadville doesn't have anything for, honoring this individual who has, put his life's work into protecting and serving. The dichotomy of his service is protecting, and the other part is the safety of the kids. I mean, anybody, he retired, I think, in the late 80s. I graduated in 93, so right around that era, I got to learn from him. But just an indelible mark. It's good, in preface of this, to hear things like, Council Watts, MLK statue. I came in here thinking, how come we don't honor more people around here? And it was just really good to hear that in preface of this. So Johnny passed in about 1998, if I'm correct, unexpectedly. His family, Mama Foster, as we affectionately call her, and Tammy, who was a local teacher here, would be here. There's Tammy's older sister, Jacqueline, is right now in the throes of COVID. She's in intensive care in an upstate Mississippi hospital, hanging on. So they do send their regards, and they would be here otherwise to hear this about their loved one. So what I would encourage is just consulting the family. Ms. Wickert was very kind in giving me a couple options about ways that you could in fact move forward with this. Bench, plaque, things come to mind, like a police officer award for outstanding community service, stuff of that nature. Unlike the previous potential agreement on the board, this isn't an agreement. This isn't about me. This isn't about the purpose. This is about the Foster family and Johnny's legacy. So the idea is, if council would like to entertain it, discuss it, and maybe come up with an idea and consult the family on the best vessel to utilize, how would they think that Johnny would want to be remembered? Mama Foster's getting up there in age. She's well into her 80s, so yeah. I'm sure she would have some great ideas. So that's really the extent of what I bring forward. Appreciate the time.
What we could do is have staff, I know you guys are pretty busy on things, but we can contact Mrs. Foster and
Sure.
see what their input is. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways you can recognize somebody, from a park bench, to a stone.
I afterwards I thought about it. I think renaming Willow Street. That's where he grew up. That's where he raised his family.
Residence, yeah.
From South Main to Liberty Street. I think that would be great.
South Main to Liberty.
Willow Street from
Oh.
South Main to Liberty. That's
Okay.
He grew up in that raised
area.
his family in that block.
Okay.
Yeah, and he, when I was growing up, that's we knew that we were safe because Johnny was always there, whether he was on patrol or not. He was always involved with us as kids. So I think, and I think Norma Jean would be pleased with that.
Okay. All right. So
I
we'll
really
contact the
appreciate it.
family and throw a couple things out, see what they would suggest.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Katie, could you mark that down? Do that for us, please. Discussion the hazmat plan. sorry, you're losing my voice here.
Yes, sir. This is the county hazard mitigation plan. Every 5 years, the county updates the plan, and they're required by law, federal law, in order to receive federal disaster funding to create and adopt a plan, and every individual municipality within the county also must adopt the plan in order to receive that. What the plan generally does, and it is 439 pages, so I read every page to come up with I reviewed every page. It's very thorough, and what it does basically, it identifies the major threats that there might be to anyone in the county, the residents of the county, from invasive species, landslide, pandemic, tornado, dam failure, terrorism, drought, earthquake, flooding, fire, etc. They then look at the impact of each of those, the probability of them occurring, where they would occur, how big of an area they might occur, the duration, and then how much warning time we might have. And then from that, they create basically a rating and a ranking from that for each individual type of event. For the city, the top threats, of course, probably no surprise, flooding, fires, tornado, hazmat release, and dam failure, of course, which we just talked about. So those are the main threats that are in there from the city standpoint. And it also has action plans for the city to abate some of these or deal with some of those. And the top one, of course, is rehab the dam, evaluate the Lower Park Avenue stormwater system down by Arby's Taco Bell, which floods quite a bit and was a main issue with the ice jam from a few years ago. Replace the Waldy Court culvert, which the bulk of Waldy Court behind Walgreens, that alley, the bulk of that is a culvert. It's not sitting on dirt, it's sitting on a culvert. There's a stormwater pipe under that. You'll recall a few years back we had some blew out the top in a couple of spots. And then the fifth one is evaluate the Neeson Run stormwater culvert, which runs from Grove Street to behind Valesky's, where it deposits into Mill Run under Pine Place. That is entirely a culvert, 3,700 feet, which in spots is in pretty rough shape. So my point with all of this is essentially what that plan does, and it does it for every municipality in the county and for the county itself. We are required to adopt it, and I wanted to come to council tonight to discuss it, and then it would be a resolution adopting it would actually be at the next meeting. So again, I provided the link to the plan if you wanted to look at that, but that's essentially how it addresses, how it deals with Meadville in the plan. So if you have any questions, I can do my best.
Any questions?
No.
So it doesn't obligate us to do these things, but it says that these are the.
We have to show that we have a plan, we have identified and we have a plan to deal with each of these, with the main issues, so that if something happens, we can get the federal funding to help us out.
Okay. Sounds like a plan. No other questions? Discussion, 2021 CDBG proposal. Mary Ann?
Good evening, Council. So before you had two charts. You have a 2021 CDBG Citizen Project Proposal chart, and then a City Staff Recommendation chart. So we're going to start with the Citizen Project Proposal one. So the project proposals were due from the community by the end of day on May 21st. We received two project proposals, one from Common Roots, the other from Fairview Fairmont. As Don alluded to, upon further review and discussion with the county, it comes to our attention that Common Roots, that house at 1189 South Main, is not eligible for CDBG funds. Because it's in a floodway, federal law prohibits the use of those funds for anything that becomes affixed to the home. So things like tools and insurance, that's okay. But their request for the bathroom renovation, replacement, kitchen renovation, those unfortunately cannot be funded. Fairview Fairmont submitted 5 different projects for a total of $52,846. These include paving of all lots, repair and partial replacement of their railings, replacement of interior LED hallway lights, carbon monoxide detectors, power washing the buildings. If you come over to the city staff recommendations, city staff has recommended that Fairview Fairmont be partially funded. And that would include exterior railing repair and replacement, replacing LED hallway lights, and then installing the carbon monoxide detectors. That total is $6,833.56. So for other staff recommendations, automatically we're obligated to take for the county 6% under contract. If you recall, the city contracts out some admin services with the county, obligatory 6% to their staff, and then another 2% for planning. So already of 8% coming out, and then the rest of the administration's $33,000, a little over that, goes to city staff for time that they put into the CDBG projects. We've also included paving this year for a total of $112,000. This is North Cottage Street. This would be a brick conversion. It'd be Randolph Street to the end. Code enforcement is typically funded every year for $40,000. We put in $70,000 for Heidi Cooper Park. If you remember last year, we allocated $50,000 trying to do a complete renovation of Heidi Cooper Park. This would include a full new design and layout of the park.
Okay.
And then we've included $42,410.41 to a new fire EMS squad vehicle. And included in your packets was a quote from McCandless Ford on the squad vehicle. They quoted it a little bit higher than what was left over in CDBG funding. So the $566-ish would need to come out of that borrowing that was discussed earlier.
Okay.
We talked about borrowing for $11,000, which would include
Right.
that.
Okay.
And one other note I wanted to mention, Heidi Cooper Park, we're looking to aggregate 3 years' worth of funding from CDBG. So last year we did 50, this year would be 70, and next year there'd be an amount because you have 3 years to spend it, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we're looking to aggregate that toward our match. And as we're looking to actually do some design, the design with money that we've already put aside from CDBG, planning money that we'd already put aside, we're about $18,000 there. The $70,000, the $50,000, and the next year's allocation would be aggregated to then seek for grants, some similar to what we did with Bicentennial in the past, to look for DCNR funding and County Act 13 funding to hopefully make up the difference. It may or may not make up the difference. We may need to have actual city cash at some point as well, or stormwater funds maybe to deal with some of the stormwater issues there. So the $70,000, I just don't want council to think that's what it's going to cost. It's going to cost closer to $400,000 or $500,000.
Right.
So.
Gary, does the squad vehicle get used to transport crew members? Fire?
There's usually 2 that ride in it. The rest in the back is usually just 2.
Okay, because I was wondering between a super cab and a four-door, if it would make more sense.
Yeah, they want the super cab, which is this a little bit shorter. It's not a crew cab where you have 4 full doors. It's a little bit shorter. It's like an extended cab.
Right.
But they wanted to have climate-controlled storage in there, and that's what would go
Okay.
inside there. And then the back would actually have a cap and then a roll-out rack, so they'd be able to use the entire depth of the bed
Right.
as well. Yeah.
On the planning at Heidi Cooper, who's going to be doing the planning? Is there going to be any input from,
Absolutely.
from the city, from
Absolutely.
residents? And
What we're hoping, and it's still my hope, is to do that this year, to still do that this year. Hopefully, we can get some things done. We have Ashley Porter that's actually going to do the stormwater design, and he's already done some preliminary looking at that, because there needs to be a lot of, because of the topography, there has to be a lot of stormwater work there. So he's begun that, and then we'll just do it at a staff level. Probably Debbie Coral and I will lead that effort to have public input, have multiple public, what do you want to see there? Go do the design, come back, say this is what we're proposing, what do you think? So it's
We're going
this.
to follow the same guidelines, pretty close to the HP when we did
Exactly. It's very similar to HP Way Park.
HP
I'm
one.
interested in being part of that.
Yep. Yep. That's the plan with that. So hopefully we could get that concept done this year to submit for next year with DCNR, and then you can finalize the design and build in probably 23 or 24. again, it takes time for that, so, but that's still the hope, that's the dream, so.
In relation to Heidi Cooper, there's community efforts that are underway right now to raise funds. I don't know, what that is going to look like. I know you've been in touch with those folks, Marianne and Gary, too. Hopefully that might offset some of it. And I think that's starting this summer, July 31st, the 3-on-3 basketball tournament at the Mark. Is designed as a fundraiser, and it might be, and I think I'm offering myself up to do this if there's a way that we can work it out, Gary, but it could be a way to start to get input very, very early from folks.
I've met with the person from the Y, a couple that are working and spearheading that, and so if you need, I'm willing to talk to them or introduce them where you could talk to them or whoever's in charge. But
You're referring to Mark?
Yeah. Okay, so I think it's a good idea that if they can raise money for us, why not?
Sure. So
North Cottage Street, does it have to be converted?
that's really bad. I mean, that's like Glenwood Avenue bad. It's in really rough shape. To rebuild that, I don't even want to quote what it would cost, but to rebuild it would be at least triple the cost of doing it. Well, double the cost. It's in rough shape. It doesn't have to be a conversion, no, but we would recommend that it happen.
That street. I like it brick. I think they do too.
Any questions for Mary Ann?
What's the next step, Mary Ann?
So council will need to decide Mr. Goldstein's request, if they want to consider allowing some additional time for Common Roots to go back and look at the exceptions to the floodway regulations and what can and cannot be used in CDBG funding, and then come back and hear that at the council's next meeting on the 16th.
I'm in favor of that. I think it's a good project. I'd like to see, if there's any way we could help work with them.
Mary Ann, does council need to vote at the next meeting?
Yes.
So if we did that, we'd have to make sure that Mr. Goldstein got some information to us ahead of time, and we can vet with the county whether it qualifies, and if it did, we could get that to council in notes. But council would have to consider that, and then potentially amend what the proposal is, and vote on it at the same meeting, just so you know.
Okay. So, Dawn, do you think you'll be able to get that information to us?
Yes, I think we could do that.
I mean, it's worth, though, maybe thinking about, if we would consider that, what would not be funded through the CDBG proposal.
It would probably come from Heidi Cooper, because
Fair.
that's, what's that?
Out of the Heidi
Just
Cooper.
repeating. Go ahead. Some active listening.
Heidi Cooper, yes. I'm not sure, because the other ones are more set costs, like this is what it's gonna cost, where Heidi Cooper it's gonna cost more than that, obviously, but that's probably where it would come from, depending on the amount that they're seeking, they would impact that.
And Dawn, the goal is to rehab the house and then flip it? Is that, tell me what your goal is.
We're planning to rehab the house and make it the first in a limited equity housing cooperative that Common Roots is in the process of establishing, which would allow the residents to become owners and build some equity and a little bit of wealth in their homeowning situation. So depending on the legal, we're in the process of engaging legal counsel on the most appropriate way to structure that. But depending on how that happens, either Common Roots itself or a separate entity to be set up by Common Roots would continue to own the house, but the residents would actually be owners of shares in the building.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it
Okay.
gives me an idea where you're heading with it.
Yeah.
So,
We're talking a co-op.
Yes, exactly.
okay.
I continue to bring them up just because they're on my mind, because I went to the county session last night with the American Rescue Plan Act funds that are coming our way. I guess I just want to flag it for council, to consider, right? There's potential, I would imagine, like, I wonder if there's potential either to cover the physical, like if the physical, renovation work at Common Roots House is more of a priority. I don't know, if there's opportunity there, or alternatively, if I'm thinking like the squad vehicle for the fire department, or even parks. I mean, there was a lot of, there seemed to be still a lot of questions, but some potential for how that money can be used. So.
Did they offer any time frame from them and what they're looking at?
We're anticipating, I think, to get to see our first half, the end of July, early August.
Any guidelines with it yet, or did they?
Yeah, that's what the sessions were on, and Gary went to a different one. They're putting that in, the county's putting at least the info that they've put together on their website.
We literally, it was about 4:30 today, we got an email from the states. We need to actually apply for the funding.
Okay.
So we were actually going to be doing that probably in the next week or so. It's a single app through the DCD website. We're going to actually apply for it, and we'll probably come back to the next council meeting to ratify that, to ratify seeking that. But they're requesting that we do it within the next 5 days. So we're going to do that in the next 5 days, and then we'll probably come back to council with a resolution to ratify that action to seek to formally request the 1.25 million
So it's 1.25
over 2 years.
over 2.
6 and change, and then 6 and change.
Yep, and then we have until the end of '24 to have it obligated, and the end of '26 to actually spend it. So there's a lot of time for it, so
Once
we
we
do
get
need
to
to be
that point.
deliberate about it. And we won't be actually getting the money probably August, maybe.
The first part.
That's what right.
Okay.
And we are very slowly digesting and working on a set of recommendations and a menu of options the council could consider to fund.
To bring it, okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay. Any other questions for Mary Ann? Thanks for standing there for so long. Appreciate it. Thanks again for everything you're doing up there,
Sure.
especially on Water Streets. I'm really pleased to hear that.
Yes, it'll be exciting. The only other thing I wanted to mention to council, I don't have a specific time yet, but August 11th will be the second CDBG public hearing. So that's where the county will hold the session. It'll be a mix of county, city, and Vernon Township and Titusville all together to present to the public what the each municipality's and the county's recommendations for their use of CDBG funds are, and to garner any additional community input.
The last public hearing you had, how many city residents were there, if you don't mind me asking?
There were 2. They were both from CHAC.
2.
No, Housing Coalition, 2.
Okay. No other questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Ann.
Discussion on the summer park program. Gary?
Thank you, Your Honor. You'll recall we had a communication to council at the last meeting from Lee Scandinaro asking about the status, if at all, of a summer parks program. So I did a little research in this. 2 years ago, the Recreation Authority ran a summer parks program at Haida Cooper and Shady Brook with funding, I guess, from the Bonner program or from the college. I'm not sure exactly where that came from. Wasn't involved, but that's how I understand it.
Yeah, there were Bonner students placed there, so they provided the labor that staffed the parks for several Bonner students from that. And prior, it had been a Systems of Care grant that had run through Systems of Care.
So as far as being able to provide that again this year, there is no city funding. There was no city money budgeted for that this year. So I reached out to Aaron Rekich at the executive director of the rec and asked what it would take for them to be able to hire and supervise a couple of staff 5 days a week, 4 hours a day at each park, and he said it'd be about $16,000. There is no city money, as I said, for that, and the rec authority doesn't have any money for that either, but he said if given the money, he could undertake that maybe for several weeks this summer. Initially, I thought maybe the American Rescue Plan Act money could potentially fund that. I'm not clear on 100% with that. If I can get some direction from that saying that it is, given that we wouldn't receive that money until the end of the year, or end of the summer, after we would want this, I mean, maybe there's a potential to float some. I'm not sure. I frankly haven't talked about it with Deb, but we could potentially fund it and then reimburse ourselves from that at the back end if council felt that it was important enough to try to have that this year.
I have a couple of questions, because Andy and I had this discussion when we talked about it before. I think the summer program's a great idea, but I would like to make sure that we have porta potties at the areas where they're going to be in some kind of water. What's that?
Yep, they already installed porta potties and hand washing stations at all parks.
Over in Fifth Ward also?
Yeah,
It's
is
here?
that from COVID money? Where did that money come from? I asked Andy last year, he said it was money the government
Well,
had given us.
I'm not sure, we started it last year and then they did it again this year. I just know that all the parks have bathroom facilities.
Put one out. I didn't see a water, I didn't see it. But
Yeah, there's one by that shed over there.
Okay, it's not
Okay.
much.
Yeah.
All right, good. So that's not part of the 16,000. I like to hear that. They were using neighbors' homes, and that was not a safe thing to do.
No.
So,
The question is council feel that it's something we should look into to try to verify whether we can use the ARPA money, and then if we have the money to float them, and then pay ourselves back out of the ARPA money, if that's all legit, if you will, is that something council wants staff to look into?
can you
Do we have a
find the
count
money?
of How many people actually patronize these parks during those time
I would
periods?
assume the Breck would do
They had
it.
a count last time. Can you give us the count of how many people? I went twice and checked at Heidi Cooper. There were two people both times. So it wasn't a large attendance, but it was the first year of trying to bring back something, which I could see how it wouldn't be a large attendance.
So the Rec would be overseeing the summer park program. We just give them the money, they would we fund the Rec to do this.
Essentially, yes.
So all the responsibility would be on the Rec.
We would work that out with the rec, yeah.
Okay. So is there a place we can find 16,000? There's a bridge
Well, we
loan,
would just
whatever
take
you
it
want
out
to
of
call
the
it.
general fund and then replace it if it was an eligible expense. Otherwise, it would come out of the general fund.
Right.
Okay.
I think what I would rather see happen is us use the American Rescue Plan Act money or CDBG or something to make investments in public facilities in our parks, which we are allowed to do. So maybe something more permanent than porta potties or the portable hand wash stations, and like set up the infrastructure for future years, because I think the lack of bonners in this summer, I think, is just this year. I think it is just a COVID I believe, which could mean that partnership might be able to come back, and that could be how that program is structured and what it looks like into the future. But if we invest in our parks, then they're ready to go and to be
Right.
used for that purpose next summer and beyond, I think, is what I would like to see.
So hold off this year on the summer parks program, is your recommendation?
With the exchange that we invest in our parks, so
In the
that
future.
Fifth Ward has a bathroom and a place to wash hands.
But how can we use
Or shade.
CDBG funds in Fifth Ward because that's in a floodplain?
Yeah, we might be able to use the ARPA funds. I don't know if there are the same floodplain restrictions. They weren't mentioned in anything I've seen.
I'm just guessing that the cost to install ADA compliant restroom facilities, I think you'd be lucky to get away with $50,000 a copy by the time it's all said and done. The engineering, the plumbing, the excavation, all the rest of that.
Restrooms really changes everything, because someone has to like go and check on them. And I would assume you'd have to lock them up every day. And I mean, I don't really want a restroom right next to my building down there, a public restroom. And I don't, just because I wouldn't want the traffic.
You're okay with the porta potties though for the program?
It's sitting on our lot. I told him to go ahead and put it there, because
Oh.
I don't mind that. But But I guess it's there 24 hours a day too. And I mean, I know the neighbors don't like it, but I don't know. It's opening up a whole new can of worms there. I wanted to put a restroom on Highland because there was one there when I was a kid, there was one there on HP Way. And I wanted to, no one else did. And I wanted a water fountain, and no one else wanted one.
Is there one there
Yeah,
now?
so I guess the point that I'm trying to get at is like, what are the restrictions that we're imposing on this program, right? If people want to have a summer parks program in the 5th Ward, and we say no because you need to have a restroom, well, there's not ever gonna be a restroom there, and they can't ever have the parks program there. So can we like put the money in, then can we back off? Or can we say, I don't know, you just need shade or water? I mean, are there other, are we able to, what are we imposing, and how can we help address that in this time where maybe the program's not running, rather than like to move quickly and get this program up and running? How can we like invest in the infrastructure we've got,
For the
remove the
future.
barriers so that it can happen, and we're not standing in the way in the future? So maybe it's not a restroom, but it's shade and it's water or something. Again, it's what are we gonna require of a place to allow a summer park program to happen? That's where
There's
I'm
a real
coming
nice
from.
park at the end of Lincoln. There is a nice park at the
Yeah.
end of Lincoln.
Yeah, but no one knows who is in charge of it, or like who to
I have no
contact to
idea.
use it.
I have no
We
idea.
actually
should be
signed that
certain.
over to Vernon Township about 15, 20 years ago. Thompson, I think, was involved in
Jack
that.
Thompson.
Jack, yeah.
There was a basketball court on Lincoln, and the neighbors complained because the kids would go out and play at night. As you can see, them complaining.
does-
The
what does-
houses are so close to the park.
What does Vernon Township do with Roach Park? I know they have restrooms, but do they have supervision? Because I know my great-grandchildren come up there and like to play, and I've never seen supervision on site.
We've rented some places there, we've rented shelters.
I know that they do similar to us, where they rent the shelters out, and there's maintenance of the facilities, but I don't think that there's anybody there.
If you just want to play on the playground equipment,
You
it's
just
there
go.
for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that Roach Park might have been included when the program was run by the county, and so they did summer park programs outside of just the city limits. I think that Roach Park might have been on that list, but since the program then came under the Recreation Authority, it, narrowed in scope. I recognize I got us off track, so.
Oh, sorry.
What do you want me to do?
Well, I guess
bring us
here's
back
what
to
we gotta
right?
look at. If you're gonna have a summer parks program, you don't wanna start in July, because the summer's half over. So if we're interested in doing it, we can find the 16,000 and kind of bridge loan it until we get some kind of grant money that we can put back. I guess I'm gonna refer back to, what did the rec think? I mean, do they think this is a good project for them? I mean, is there enough interest? You don't wanna spend 16,000 if you're only gonna have 5 or 6 kids. I mean, the number's gonna be important, kind of.
I mean,
that's-
it would have to be with all deliberate speed in order for them to be able to advertise the position, hire them, train them up, and get going. So, I mean, it would be really tight right now for it to happen, for sure. Not sure how many kids you get. I have no idea how many there were before. And I don't know how long it would take Aaron to get something going, but it wouldn't be ideal at this point.
Okay.
But it's not to say it shouldn't happen.
Just expressing an opinion, one of the reasons the rec complex was built was that kids had drowned in French Creek. In other words, they didn't know how to swim. I wonder what the cost would be, or how far $16,000 would go in using it to teach economically disadvantaged children how to swim to a level of competency. I know there is theoretically a swim program in school, but by the time you get to the rec complex, change, and then get showered and get out and walk back to school, you have maybe 10 minutes in the class period at best. That's not going to teach you how to swim. On the other hand, if you have a program similar to the Y, you have Guppy through Shark, call it whatever you will, You could get different levels of competency in swimming. After all, 70% of the plant is covered in water. It might be a good idea to make sure that you can save yourself should the situation arise. I would think that might be a better use of the money and targeted toward economically disadvantaged individuals.
So I think the way that I'm understanding the discussion item though is right, that the rec isn't asking for 16,000. They're just saying if this is a priority of council, we'll need 16,000 to do it. And it's not like we've got 16,000 lying around that we gotta figure out what we wanna do with it.
So
So I think it's just a matter of, is this a priority in this year to have a summer parks program? Or not?
the staff pretty much told us it would take quite some time to get everything in order for this to happen. So instead of doing it halfway, it's maybe best we just don't do it. You're taking 16,000 out of the general fund. The whole thing is if we can't get it done quickly so the kids have that ability,
So it's beneficial.
you know,
Yeah, we would not at all say spend city general fund money on it. It would be totally dependent on whether you can use ARPA money for it. We just don't have the money this year to do that, to use staff money.
so maybe this is
city
not
money.
the year to do this, the parks program.
Well, ultimately, at some point, who has the liability of someone getting hurt or
Yeah,
someone
I'm concerned
having a
about the city
problem or-
financially sponsoring a project that's put together in 2 weeks' time.
Right.
Yeah.
I have some pretty big concerns, particularly where unsupervised children are the subjects
Right.
of the project.
Right.
Okay.
So basically, this should be addressed this coming February.
For next
following
year,
summer.
yeah.
I agree.
So-
On the programmatic end, I think, again, if we want to make some investments in our parks, we can start doing that ASAP.
Okay. I think on the recommendation of what our solicitor and staff and timing, it's just best we just don't do it this year. We, thank the authority or the MARC, for offering it, but it just might be safer to do it later. Any other questions on that? Discussion of resolution amending personnel complement. Gary, or I'm sorry, go ahead and read the resolution, please.
A resolution of the council of the city of Meadville amending the personnel complement by adding a deputy finance director position. Be it resolved by the council of the city of Meadville that whereas city council passed the 2021 budget ordinance number 3784 on December 16, 2020, approving certain personnel complements within city departments. And whereas the 2021 budget did not include a deputy finance director position. And whereas the multitudinous demands of the finance department necessitate the addition of a deputy finance director position in order to carry out the critical functions of the city of Meadville. And whereas there is an immediate need for the addition of the position of the deputy finance director. And whereas the city of Meadville has recognized the significant savings in the 2021 budget due to the resignation of the city manager, such that the addition of a deputy finance director position to the personnel complement in the finance department shall not significantly alter the 2021 budget. And whereas the deputy finance director would be a non-union, Fair Labor Standards Act exempt position and would adhere to the job description attached hereto. Now therefore be it resolved, and it is hereby resolved by the city of Meadville, by and through the council of the city of Meadville, that for calendar year 2021, the personnel complement of the city of Meadville Finance Department is amended to include a deputy finance director. In witness whereof the present resolution has been duly adopted the second day of June 2021 and duly advertised and convened public session.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion, Gary.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yep. I think the resolution's quite well written and
Yes.
speaks for itself.
Great job.
Nice
Dave.
job, Elizabeth. The position description the job description is also attached for your review. So,
Why non-union?
Because we're non-reps. We don't have
All
any.
of the admin is?
Yeah, this job description, just for council's background, was the description we have been using throughout city history. We haven't had a deputy finance director in some number of decades, but ever since we have had the position, yeah, it was called clerk.
Yes.
I was deputy finance director when I
Decades
went.
ago.
Not
Just kidding.
decades.
No, Tim said that your position title was something or other clerk.
Oh. Good to know.
Yeah. So,
Keep it for your resume.
yeah, either way you cut it, neither job description fell into the union category. So we want to be clear that we're not avoiding any union affiliation with this position, but instead sort of refreshing the position that we've always, well, depending on who you ask, we've always had the position. Yes.
Okay.
That's all I had, Your Honor.
Any questions? Nope. Roll call?
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye. We have a resolution authorizing signatures, vision insurance contract. Katie?
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on vision insurance contracts for both platinum and gold plans between the City of Meadville and Vision Benefits of America Incorporated. Resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the attached agreements are hereby approved and adopted substantially in the form attached hereto, subject to final approval by the city solicitor as and for a binding and effective agreement of the City of Meadville in accord with its terms. And the mayor, controller, and the city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to execute and to attest such copies of the attached agreement in the manner required by law as may be reasonably required for the purposes of the parties thereto.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Gary?
Thank you, Your Honor. We've talked about this a few times in the past. Now, this is basically introducing a new benefit for city employees, paid for 100% by the city employees, at least for this year. It's a vision coverage. It's at a very affordable rate. There's two different plans, as you noted, as Katie noted in the resolution. And so just to basically need council's approval to institute that, sign the contract, and then we would move forward from a staff perspective on anyone that might be interested who could sign up.
And there's no cost to the city. This is entirely funded by the employees.
That's correct. That's all I had, Your Honor.
Any other questions? Roll call?
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye. Katie, we have a resolution authorizing signatures for municipal recycling program.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on a DEP grant agreement for the 902 Municipal Recycling Program Grant. Resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the attached agreement is hereby approved and adopted substantially in the form attached hereto, subject to final approval by the city solicitor, as and for a binding and effective agreement of the City of Meadville in accord with its terms. And the mayor and city clerk are hereby authorized to electronically sign and directed to execute and to attest such copies of the attached agreement in the manner required by law as may be reasonably required for the purposes of the parties thereto.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Gary?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is nearly identical to one we received 2 years ago. Basically, it's going to pay for a second self-propelled leaf vac, which reduces the staff need from 3 to 1 for each for collection of leaves. So this will give us a second one of those instead of the leaf trailers that we've been using. It also pays for new recycling carts, the blue carts that we put at the curb for residents. And the third part is for the recycling calendars, which you should have all received this last weekend. It's a $208,000, $507 grant. Will be matched with $23,168 local match with that.
So it's about 99% capital expenditures and 1% or less expense items.
Ish. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And what do we do with the old equipment? Do we put that up for auction or how?
The old leaf trailers?
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yes, we still have one relatively new one, but the second old yellow one we probably would auction off or sell to another municipality.
Okay.
That's what we did with the last one.
All right. Any other?
Is this a separate leaf back than the one that's in the capital borrowing plan? Capital plan.
It's the same one. That's where the match would come
So
from.
this is where the 175 comes from?
That's a grant, that's the grant, right? Yeah, that's,
Total
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the leaf act itself is right around that amount. Yeah. It's right around 200,000 is what the amount of that is, 195, 200,000. So you put it all together, you see the 195 in the right column. That's the total cost of the leaf act. The rest of the 236 is the carts and the mailers. Yeah.
Any other questions? Roll call?
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel? Stearns?
Aye. We have a resolution authorizing signatures for settlement and release agreement.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on a settlement and release agreement between the City of Meadville and Monica Heisey. Resolved by the Council of the City of Meadville that the attached agreement is hereby approved and adopted substantially in the form attached hereto, subject to final approval by the city solicitor, as if for a binding and effective agreement of the City of Meadville in accord with its terms. And the mayor, controller, and city clerk are hereby authorized and directed to execute and to attest such copies of the attached agreement in the manner required by law, as may be reasonably required for the purposes of the parties thereto.
Motion?
Motion?
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
No? Okay. Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye. Council member statement. Larry, I'll start with you this evening.
Thank you. Well, just with the school coming to an end, just again, be careful, watch out for kids. And with unmasking coming, I hope everybody is able to get out and enjoy themselves, but still be careful because, you know, we don't want a reoccurrence of COVID. So, and I'd just like to thank Debbie and all of them for the work that they've done on preparing all this information. It's really helpful and really appreciate it.
Thank you. Autumn?
Yeah, the world is opening back up. We can all learn to socialize again. I feel like I need to relearn it. But Friday, this Friday is a First Friday event downtown. So there's not a theme, there's no cookies, but there will be businesses open late, and a band will be playing from an undisclosed rooftop maybe location. A jazz band that I went to high school with, actually. It's very cool, and they're great. And the next Saturday is Second Saturday Community Market on Chestnut Street. So, and the farmers markets have started again at the Meadville Market House every Saturday morning. So, lots to do, lots to love. Got me love this time of year.
Sean? Jim?
Well, it's June 2nd. Probably in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to turn our furnaces off. It'll be a nice summer.
Yeah.
Good one, Jim.
Not a statement, but maybe a comment.
What's the difference?
Well, this is kind of adding on to something we already discussed real quick. If we're looking at ordering a sign for Ted Watts on the alley, can maybe we hold off a week or so until we see what we're doing with Johnny Foster, so we could order both of those, if that would be the case?
They have BOGO deal. Street signs.
And we can get one for Crawley, too.
I will
Being a new
say
solicitor.
that I spoke with Gina today, and they are looking to hold a ceremony on June 20th.
Oh, okay.
And if they could, they'd like the sign here for that.
Okay.
We're also signing it, we're actually going to do two, because we need one for Ken Lucas Way.
Oh.
We're going to order that at the same time. So
Okay, I was
still
just
take
trying to
advantage
save a
of
little money if we could. All right, I have no other statements. Roll call, or motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Second,
I'll second.
roll call.
Donahue?
Aye.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Stearns?
Aye. Let's go home.